Merry Christmas! If you're like me, this is one of your favorite times of the year and you love to watch Christmas movies, and there are a ton of them. So here I am whittling down the top 21 Christmas movies of all time. This is video number 1. But before we get into that, remember to go into the description and click on the link there for a free epic fantasy ebook that I wrote. And also remember to subscribe and follow this YouTube channel. All right, are you ready? Let's do it. Welcome back to Great Stories Change the World. This is the YouTube channel where a fantasy science fiction author, that's me, looks over movies and TV shows and books and talks about the stories within them and maybe make a few recommendations like I'm doing today, because I believe that great stories do change the world, and this is a great time of year to look at some great movies. There's some classics that we're going to look at. And I have my Misfit Toys shirt on and I'm ready to go. All right, are you ready? We're going to start with number 21. So I'm going to do like 21 through 11 first in this video. At number 21, we have 8-Bit Christmas. Now, I wanted to do top 20, but I kind of had to add this one because this is Neil Patrick Harris, who I think he's great, very funny, and he does a great job in this movie. This is kind of a mashup between Princess Bride and A Christmas Story, and they do a great job. As derivative as it is, they do their own thing with it, and it came out on HBO Max last year, 2021, and it's become one of my new favorites, to be honest. I really think it's great. So, number 21, 8-Bit Christmas, all right? Number 20, we have The Santa Claus. This came out in 1994. This has Tim Allen. This was at the height of his popularity. And to be honest, this is one of the best things that he's done. The sequels weren't great. They were kind of money makers. The second one was decent. The third one was awful. And to be honest, the streaming show that's on Disney Plus, I actually kind of like it. So check it out if you haven't. It's a classic, and it's one of the best things that Tim Allen's done, all right? So number 19, we have Holiday Inn. This came out in 1942, and this has two legends in it. It's got Bing Crosby and Fred Astaire. Now, Bing Crosby loved to do movies with other actors, like buddy picture kind of things. And I don't know whether he just didn't think he was a good actor or he wasn't a good dancer, and he kind of wasn't a good dancer, but he was an amazing singer and a decent actor, but he loved these kind of buddy pictures like he did with Bob Hope and some other people. And in this one, it's Holiday Inn, and it's kind of a Christmas movie. I'm including it here because this is where we get the song White Christmas. This is the first time he sings it. It is literally the top selling music single of all time. Like that song White Christmas is the best selling song of all time. And so this is where you get it, but there's a lot of great numbers in here. If you like musicals, Fred Astaire, Bing Crosby, amazing, all right? At number 18, we have Lethal Weapon from 1987. This is kind of Mel Gibson's, coming out party sort of thing. Like, this was his huge movie that made him a star. He was doing the Road Warrior and Mad Max stuff before that, so he'd had some name recognition, but with this movie, he becomes one of the biggest bankable stars in the world. And of course, he and Danny Glover together have great chemistry, and this is a Christmas movie. I know it's an action flick and it's violent and there's all sorts of other stuff that's going on with it, but it starts out with a Christmas song and then you kind of end with some Christmas dinner. It's very family oriented. The theme of family runs all through this movie, and that's why I have put it here on my list, all right? Number 17, we have The Holiday. This is from 2006. This is still a movie that my wife and I periodically throughout the year will say, let's just kind of watch The Holiday. This is one of our favorites. This is Cameron Diaz, Kate Winslet, both of them at kind of the height of their stardom. And so this movie just did a great job of them switching houses. So it's kind of fish out of water, learning how to love again and what love is really about, and family, and just all sorts of good themes and great acting, and it's funny. It's a little predictable, obviously, as a romantic comedy, but one of the best things about this movie, to be honest, is Jack Black. They put Jack Black in a romantic lead, and he was confused by it, and I'm sure a lot of other people were, but I love that guy, and they totally made it work, all right? So that's number 17. Number 16 is another romantic comedy around, it's about 10 years earlier. It's called While You Were Sleeping, all right? And this is Sandra Bullock at the height of her stardom. She was, coming off of Speed and some other movies. And man, this is a great romantic comedy, just really highlights all of the talent that Sandra Bullock has and had at the time. It's one of her best movies. I don't know if it's her best, but it's one of her best movies. And of course, you also have Bill Pullman in it, and you've got a great character actor, Peter Boyle, who plays the dad of Bill Pullman. And it is a Christmas movie. It's all happening around Christmas. And again, it's another theme of family. And, kind of the deception is, she the fiance and the memory loss and the whole thing with Peter Gallagher playing the brother. And it's such a great movie. We watch this movie all the time, too. But it is a Christmas movie. A lot of it happens around Christmas. Number 15, we have, going back to the classics, White Christmas. This is 1954. Again, we have Bing Crosby. Now, like I said, White Christmas was such a huge hit that they decided to do a movie based on the song, right, with the title. And now we've got Danny Kaye, another buddy guy in the movie. He's more comedy, but he's also very physical and great dancer. It also has another classic actress, Rosemary Clooney. This is one of her best. She was such a huge star back in those days. And Vera Allen plays kind of the fourth in the four people, right? The four stars that are in this. But this is a great movie. It's one we watch all the time, almost every Christmas. We got to sit down. We sing all the different songs. Got some great numbers. White Christmas at number 15. At number 14, we have A Muppet Christmas Carol. Now, I didn't love this movie when it came out. This is in 1992. But this is the first Muppet movie that they made after Jim Henson died. And so a lot of people were really unsure what to do. This was a different sort of idea of a Muppet movie than they had before. Like they had the Great Muppet Caper and they had the Muppet movie, and they kind of were original stories. But here with the Muppet Christmas Carol, they started to do these kind of classic literature stuff like they did with Treasure Island and some other things. And a lot of people weren't so sure about it. It didn't have as many stars. It just has Michael Caine as Scrooge. But as time has gone on, this has become my favorite Christmas Carol movie. There's some great ones. George C. Scott one is great, but this has become one of my favorites. And the full version with the song that they have kind of cut out in the DVD, but it was in the original like theatrical version. They put it back in. So it's a great one. It's really well done. It moves well. It's got some great themes. Again, it's a classic story, and they do it Muppet style, and it's just very clever. So Muppet Christmas Carol, one of my favorites. Number 13, I have not the best movie, but very nostalgic movie for me and a lot of us who grew up during this time, Gremlins. This is 1984. And the main big star that we have in this one is Phoebe Cates, and a lot of people may not even know who she is these days, but she was one of those actresses that we all had a big crush on. And this was like a PG-13 sort of Christmas horror movie. And that's really sort of weird to say, but it wasn't as violent or as bloody as a lot of the other ones that have kind of gone on through the years. And this had a very cute gizmo and had a lot of cute marketing. And the kid Billy gets this mogwai, and there's some plot holes, but man, the puppetry and all of the stuff that they do with this, and the visuals, and the little fun moments that they do with the Gremlins, and all of those moments are really fun. And the fight in the department store, we loved this movie when it came out. So number 13, Gremlins. At number 12, we have Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Now, a lot of people may not know, But the story, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, came from like a Montgomery Ward, which is, again, a department store back in the day. And there was just like a little book that they had. And they wrote this short story, and they had this little book for kids called Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And then later on in the 40s, I think his name was Johnny Marks, wrote a song, and Gene Autry sang it, and the song became a huge hit of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the song we all know, right? Well, again, it just kind of grew and grew in popularity and became a classic song every Christmas. And so they decided to make a special in 1964. And really, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer kind of kicked off a lot of the half-hour TV specials that we kind of got when we were growing up, some of us through the 70s and 80s when we were growing up, and Little Drummer Boy, and some of the different ones. Even Charlie Brown was after this. So this was a real pioneer and that sort of thing. The stop motion animation and the claymation sort of stuff was huge, and I was a huge fan of that stuff because I grew up and that was what you did. Even it's in Star Wars, it was in the Sinbad movies from the 70s. It's classic. The original King Kong had claymation and that sort of thing. So all of those things combined, the music, Burl Ives, who you may not know, but he was a huge sort of singer star in that time. It all worked. And it's maybe a little lower on the list. It didn't quite crack my top 10, but again, nostalgia, it's great, and there's some great moments, and I have the Island of Misfit Toys shirt on right now, all right? At number 11, last but not least, obviously, of this list, we have the Nativity story. This came out in 2006. And one of my criticisms of a lot of these Christmas movies is they seem to kind of dodge any sort of mention of Jesus and any sort of religion. Now, some of them do. And we'll get into some of those as we go. But, the Nativity story was actually a good movie that was made, and it was in the theater, and it actually did well. A lot of people seem to have forgotten about it in the last few years. But the Nativity story tells the story of Mary and Joseph and their relationship, and then the birth and of Jesus and all that sort of stuff. So it's kind of a Bible movie, but it's actually pretty well done, and it did really well in the movie theater, and people did enjoy this one. And I think it's a great movie because that is the center of the holiday, is the birth of Jesus. And, whether you believe it or not, that's where the holiday comes from. So here we go, closing it out. Number 11, the Nativity story that came out in 2006. Check it out. Now, before you go, remember to subscribe to this channel, to follow this channel so that you can get the alert when I come out with video number 2, when I go over the top 10 next, okay? So, hope you have a great Christmas. Hope you're having lots of fun, and I will see you later, all right? Peace. Merry Christmas! We are going to be counting down the top 10 Christmas movies of all time. Let's see if your favorite made number 1. Before we get to that, make sure you go into the description and click on the link for a free Epic Fantasy ebook. Also remember to subscribe to this channel for more amazing content. So now, let's go. Welcome back to Great Stories Change the World, the YouTube channel where a fantasy science fiction author, that's me, goes over media, movies, books, TV shows, and talks about great stories. Because yes, I do believe that we should tell great stories because they do change people's lives and they change the world. So today we're going to finish out my top 21 Christmas movie list. We're going to do the top 10 today. So let's just jump into it. Look at the other video if you want to kind of see where we've been up until now and talk about some Christmas movies. But let's get to the top 10. All right, number 10, we have Ernest Saves Christmas from 1988. Now this is Jim Varney. And if you know anything about Ernest, right, he was kind of in the 80s and the early 90s, and he did a lot of commercials, and he had this friend, Vern, and he was a great character actor, and he was kind of a gimmick for a lot of things, but man, he worked that gimmick. And he had Ernest Goes to Camp. That was the first movie that he made, and it was a family favorite. We loved that movie, as bad as it might have been. Then they came out with Ernest Saves Christmas. Now, this is a great movie, and it might be the most underrated Christmas movie of all time. It made my top 10 because, man, as a writer, I am continually amazed when I watch this movie that they take this gimmicky character and they actually put a great, heartwarming, funny, interesting movie around him. So the writers did a great job, and it was from 1988. Ernest Saves Christmas. We watch it every year, or at least I do, and it's one of my favorites. All right, so number 9, we have, also from 1988, we have Die Hard. Now, a lot of people argue, is this a Christmas movie? Even Bruce Willis said famously, it is not a Christmas movie. I say it is. And I think a lot of people will say that it is a Christmas movie for a couple different reasons. Yes, it happens around Christmas, and there's the Christmas party, and so there's, you know, some of those elements to it. And yet, I really think the theme of the movie, I know it's an action movie, and I know there's shooting, and there's all sorts of fun stuff, and yippee-ki-yay, but when you get down to it, the theme of the movie is John trying to fight for his wife, for his family, for the lives of other people, and trying to save them, and that is Christmas. That is what we celebrate with Christmas, that Jesus came to the world to save us and all of that sort of stuff, right? You know, that's the Christian belief. And so here we are with Die Hard, and he is fighting for the life of the people that he loves. So it's got a family element to it. It's got this reconciliation, restoration of his marriage sort of element to it. And I think it is a Christmas movie. And it is Bruce Willis's kind of main star sort of franchise. This is what really propelled him into being one of the biggest movie stars of all time. And here we are. That's my number 9, Die Hard, 1988. For number 8, we have Christmas Vacation, and this came out in 1989. I'm not trying to put all these together on purpose, but it just kind of happened. But here we have Chevy Chase, and he made a few great movies, a lot of really not great movies. Fletch and Christmas Vacation and the Christmas, National Lampoon's Vacation movies are probably his best work. Of course, there was the original Vacation, and then, of course, they went to Europe, and then they did Christmas Vacation. And John Hughes, I read an article, kind of an old interview of his, where he said, he really wasn't into making sequels. You didn't see a lot of sequels like Pretty in Pink 2, Breakfast Club 2. But, these movies, especially these, Christmas movies, were so huge that, they just kept throwing money at him to make these sequels, and so he did. And thank God he did, because Christmas Vacation is one of the funniest. You had Beverly D'Angelo as his wife. You had Randy Quaid as Cousin Eddie. All the characters are there. They kept, bringing in different kids to play the kids, which I always thought was actually funny, even when it was happening. I thought that was really fun. But here we have a great movie, a lot of great lines. This is a classic. And some people would put it higher on the list. I just couldn't because of what's ahead of it. But it is definitely up there. Number 8, Christmas Vacation. So here at number 7, we have 1983, A Christmas Story. Now, this came out, like I said, 1983, and it still gets a lot of love. Man, I think TBS or TNT, they just play it all Christmas Day because it is a classic. And when we were growing up, so I grew up after this movie came out, the whole tongue on the flagpole scene, a lot of the lines, the bunny, him coming down in the bunny suit because some crazy aunt gave him, or whoever it was, gave him this present. We all remember all of these things. We related to this movie as kids. And it is still a classic, and really, honestly, the sequel that they just made, that HBO put out, A Christmas Story Christmas, or whatever it was, with a lot of the original cast back, I actually really liked it. I thought they did a really nice job with it, and they did a couple creative things and made a really good movie out of it. So check that out if you haven't on HBO Max, or just check out A Christmas Story, and probably it'll be on sometime on Christmas Day, all right? So that's number 7. Number 6, we have Home Alone. This came out in 1990. This is John Hughes again. Now, Macaulay Culkin was in like Uncle Buck, and he had been in a couple movies, and John Hughes kind of really liked him, and John Hughes had done Uncle Buck as well with John Candy and all that stuff. So he had some experience with John Hughes and Macaulay Culkin, and so I don't know how much he just wrote it for this guy, or kind of had the idea, and but it was kind of a perfect storm. Like, cute kid, lots of personality, a screenwriter, producer, director at the top of his game, writing this thing. It was directed by Christopher Columbus, or Chris Columbus, not the guy who discovered America, but Chris Columbus, the director who went on to Harry Potter and some other things. So this is just kind of a lot of quality together. We have, not only Macaulay Culkin, but we had Joe Pesci, and we had Daniel Stern, and one of my favorite comedic actresses, Catherine O'Hara, is in this, and she plays the mom, and she is so amazing. She's been amazing in a lot of things. She's kind of from that old SCTV days, and John Candy plays a great bit role in this as well, in this movie. So there you go, Home Alone. Some people might think it has a plot hole about when he could have called the police and when the phone lines are down, yet he's ordering pizza. And so there's some funny memes going on around about that, but I still dig this movie. We watched it the other night. Number 5, we have Miracle on 34th Street. This is the original, 1947. I know they did not a sequel, but kind of a redo in the 90s. They did another version. It was basically the same story. It wasn't shot for shot, but it was really the same story, and they did a great job with it. But I always go back to the original because, I mean, you had Maureen O'Hara, who was one of my favorite actresses. She was also in The Quiet Man, which is one of my favorite movies with John Wayne. It might be John Wayne's best movie, maybe. Searchers and stuff is in there as well. But she's great in this, and it's got Natalie Wood, child star, and of course there's some tragic things that happened to her, so it's a little tragic when you watch this movie, for me, because I know some of that history. But everyone in this movie is great. The Santa Claus is great. All the different character actors do a great job, and it just moves well. It's written well. And so this was 1947, Miracle on 34th Street. A year earlier, another movie came out, and this is my number 4. It's a Wonderful Life. This was in 1946, and it's James Stewart and Donna Reed are the two main characters here. Donna Reed plays Mary. And this was a flop when it came out. You may not know that, but it did not do well when it came out. It was kind of a flop. And even though it had a lot of big names attached to it, Jimmy Stewart was a household name, it just didn't do well in the box office. But as the years went on, and they started showing it around Christmas time, because it's really not a full-on Christmas movie, but there's the one scene towards the end where he's going through town yelling Merry Christmas, so they started showing it and associating it with Christmas, and it has become a classic. But when you look at it, even though it flopped, you look at this movie, I still watch this movie as a writer, and I say, this is a perfect movie. Every line is great. The pacing is great, but they also take time for every little moment. And James Stewart's acting in this movie is so phenomenal. He does the whole range. It gets really dark there towards the middle, where people don't remember him, and Mary, who he loves, and she screams, and he gets suicidal, and like, what's going on? And yet, man, you just go through that flow of it, it's darkest, but there's hope, and it's a great movie. It is literally one of the perfect movies, one of those perfect movies that have been made. So that's my number 4. It's a Wonderful Life. Number 3 is not a full-on movie, but it is kind of a cartoon special, and I've only got a couple of them here. I had Rudolph earlier, but this is The Grinch Stole Christmas, and this is one of my favorite specials. It has everything. This is Dr. Seuss. This is Boris Karloff. This is Chuck Jones from the Looney Tunes doing the animation. Like, everything works with this. And it's funny, and it's heartwarming, and it's short, and it's one of those specials that we watch every year. But even looking back at it now, like, there's some of those specials that I used to love, like Frosty the Snowman, and they really weren't that good. Like, when you look at them now as a writer and as an adult, it's just, some of it doesn't hold up. But How the Grinch Stole Christmas holds up, and it's just, all of it works together. Genius writer, genius animation, great vocals, great song, You're the Mean One, right? It's amazing. All of it's great. Now going to number 2, Elf. Now this is one of the more modern ones. So by the time Elf came out in 2003, it was kind of a perfect storm as well. But a lot of people didn't really give it a chance at first, like leading up to it coming out. Will Ferrell did not like this movie. He did not like being in it. Obviously, he was contractually obligated to be in it. He signed a contract, but he really thought his movie career was going to be over, like running around in this elf costume. You had this brand new director, Jon Favreau, who had done some stuff like Swingers and some indie stuff. But he, so he was known as an actor and director, but like, to do a movie this big, he just had this great vision. But man, they created a new instant classic in 2003. I remember when it came out and we watched it, and I remember thinking, they did it. Like, Jon Favreau and Will Ferrell, they did it. They made an instant classic that is obviously right up there. This is my number 2. Like, it's up there with It's a Wonderful Life, A Miracle on 34th Street, and Rudolph. It's up there with all the classics, and they made a modern classic. And so Elf is up there, and of course James Caan is in it, and it's got some, it's got some great actors that plays the different parts. The casting is amazing. You had Peter Dinklage in it. You had Bob Newhart was amazing, and Zooey Deschanel, or I messed that name up, I'm sure, but she was amazing in it. So it had everything, and it's one of the ones we have to watch every year. It might be the first one we watch every year, and I'm not alone. We talk to people; they say it is too. Now here we get to the final one, 1965. My number 1 is the Charlie Brown Christmas special. All right, it's number 1. Elf almost makes it. Grinch almost makes it. Man, they're all so close here at the top 5 or 10. You could really mix and match and mix them up however you want. But for me, Charlie Brown Christmas special is up there. It was unique. No one had done this. Now, again, there were a couple Christmas specials already. Like, like you had The Grinch Stole Christmas of '66, which is a year after Charlie Brown. You had Rudolph, which was a little earlier, 63 or 4, I think. But once you get to this special, he really tried to do something different with this special. Like, there hadn't been any Charlie Brown, specials or cartoons yet. There was a famous comic strip in the newspaper, and so there was a lot of knowledge about it. There was branding and knowledge about what it was, and yet the fact that the choices that he made for jazz, for a jazz soundtrack, I mean, using Christmas carols and this kind of new jazz piano sort of thing. Vince Guaraldi, I think was his name, right? And the fact that he used real kids as the voices, the fact that he actually put in there scripture, like he just told the Christmas story but didn't tell it like in a new way. He just kind of quoted, what's Christmas all about? Does anybody know? And Linus says, I know what Christmas is all about, and he just reads from Luke, and it's straight out of the Bible. And they almost didn't air this because of that. And that's in 1965. It was not like this was more recent, where the people are even more hostile sometimes to religion. This is 1965, and they still didn't know what to do with this thing. And yet it has become one of the most watched, if not the most watched, Christmas special movies of all time. And it is the best. The animation, the music, the acting, the writing, all of it comes together, and the message, it just he put it all together in a way that has meaning, and all the stuff about the Christmas tree, and maybe it just needs a little love, and there's just so many parts of this that it's so deep within 25 minutes. That's good writing. So if you want to know what good writing is, watch especially some of these shorter specials where you look at it and you go, man, they put so much depth in such a tight amount of time. It's beautiful. Now, that's my top 10. Now, again, like I said, you could mix these up a little bit. I probably wouldn't argue too much. This is my top 10, but this is a great top 10, right? Like, these are the ones that I watch every season, okay? Now, hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of my top 10. Did your number one make it? Would you have kind of mixed some of these around? Did I leave a movie off that you really liked, that you thought, man, you left this one off of your list? I really thought you were going to talk about this one. So let me know in the comments, all right? And remember to subscribe. And I hope you have a great Christmas. I will see you in 2023, all right? Peace.